Hello, and welcome back to Murder and Its Victims. And today we have a new podcast story. We call this feature Today in Crime, and we will talk about the murder of Wendy Alba, who was 28 at the time of her death. This story would take us back to 1991 in Collin County, Texas. And during this year, the following releases occurred. LL Cool J released his song Mama Said Knock You Out. Disney released their movie Beauty and the Beast, and also the book Shallow was released. And I don't know if you read Shallow. I liked it. It was emotional. I missed that book. I need to read it again, maybe. The 90s is actually one of my favorite periods. The other favorite period is 1920s, 1940s. But in the 90s, I just love the TV shows, the Lifetime movies, and the music of that era. Anyway, enough about me. Let's go to Wendy. Wendy Ray Lanier Alba was born on October 6, 1962, in Duplin County, North Carolina. Now, while looking up the story, I tried to find pictures of her and I couldn't. And I hate when I cannot find pictures of the victims because it kind of, puts the pieces together when you can find the pictures and read the story. It just makes it more personable. However, despite the fact, I will tell her story the best that I can. Sometime during her life, she ran across John Alba and they got married. John Alba was born June 26, 1995, in Elgin, Texas. He dropped out of school in the 10th grade and became a construction worker. The Alba's marriage was plagued with abuse from John. On May 29, 1987, Wendy and John had an altercation inside of a bar. John got so angry that he grabbed a spike ball on a chain and began to swing it around. Police were called, and by the time they arrived, the argument was over. The couple decided to leave, but they began to argue again, and this time they came across a traffic stop. And John didn't stop at the traffic stop, he just flew past. But as he was going past, Wendy could be heard yelling help. So, of course, they began to follow John, and this led to a high speed chase. The chase finally ended once John stopped his car, got out of his truck, and began to yell at the officers. He also assaulted the officers and resisted arrest. Now, in today's time, that might have been his last day because you know how the cops are now. They're not tolerating a whole lot of bull. But the officers obviously handled it the best they could, and John lived to see another day. In the spring of 1991, police were called to the Alba's home in response to a domestic issue. When they arrived, they noticed Wendy. She had various injuries, including a shoe print to her back where John had kicked her, two black eyes, and marks around her neck and body. Now, instead of John backing down to the police, he actually told the officer, "Hey, I know where you live, and I will come kill your wife and your children." When I was reading about this, it didn't say that he was arrested for this, but if he was, they should have kept him in jail for a long time, at least a year or two. I'm not sure how serious police took the violence back in those days, but those threats alone, I feel like should have put him in jail. Sadly, this was just one of the many calls in regards to abuse that Wendy suffered. So, in order to tell or to talk about Wendy's last days, I have to go into a story about a 12-year-old named BT. That's what I'm going to call her. I'm not going to say her real name, but those are her initials, BT. In June of 1991, BT went over a friend's house for a slumber party, and that friend had an uncle named John Alba. And sometime during that night, he decided he wanted to molest the young girl. I'm so glad that BT had the courage to tell whoever she told about this, and he was arrested and charged with indecency with a child. After his arrest, he was allowed to call and talk to his wife. And during the call, he asked his wife to come get him out of jail, but she refused, which I'm glad she did because, you're touching children. Why would I want you around me? And you're abusive. This was a way to escape. Keep him in there so I can finally get away. In response to that, he told his wife, "Wendy, you better come get me out of jail or I'll kill you." And this is a promise that he kept. So, like I said, Wendy used his arrest and him being in jail to finally escape her husband, and she left with her children to stay with a friend. She attempted to find some shelters that would help women in her situation, but she was unsuccessful. Wendy's friends were named Gail Webb and Bob Donahoe, and they took her in and she felt safe. She thought she was going to be safe. However, John was released on August 4th, and by August 5th, he had purchased a 22 caliber semi-automatic pistol along with ammunition. So he sat in jail for those 2 months or a month and a half, just waiting to get out so that he can kill his wife. So we're still on August 5th, 1991, around 10 p.m. John decides that he wants to go to Gail and Bob's residence to look for his wife. He attempted to force entry into the home as Wendy and Gail tried to keep the door shut. John opened fire on the door and eventually he gained entry. He looked Wendy and Gail both in the eye and he told them, "You bitches deserve this." He then grabbed his wife by the hair and dragged her partially out of the apartment, so she was half inside, half outside. And keep in mind, Wendy had her children there as well, so it's possible that they witnessed all this. That is so terrifying. Like, actually reading this was just, I cannot imagine what Wendy went through. John began to assault his wife with a pistol, and he shot her in the head, he shot her in the buttocks, and he shot her in the back. And the to her back severed her spinal cord. John then went after Gail, who was hiding in the kitchen. He stood over her and told her, "You deserve to die, bitch." He kicked her several times before shooting her in the arm, and the bullets broke her arm. He then shot her once in the temple. Gail's young son was by his mother as she was being assaulted. Now, where was Bob in all of this? So, he was in the house and he went to the back room and was calling 911. While he was still on the call, he went to check on Gail and Wendy and came face to face with John. John raised his gun and asked him, "Do you want some of this?" before firing several shots at Bob's head. Thankfully, the bullets passed by Bob, so he didn't get shot. John left the apartment and came across the apartment manager, Misty Majors, her boyfriend, and another neighbor. Apparently, he was just angry with any and everyone. I don't even know how he knew Misty, but he told her, "I'm going to get you too," and fired several shots in her direction. And just like Bob, she was fortunate not to have any bullets hit her. He proceeded to ask the other two if they wanted a piece of the action, and of course they did not. And John walked right past them and walked towards his car. However, on the way to his car, he ran into Officer Wallace Moreland and told him, "I'm getting the hell out of here. There's a crazy son of a bitch over there shooting people," and he drove away. And the officer had no idea that he was indeed the son of a bitch. He was talking to the son of a bitch that was people. John decided to ditch his car in Plano, Texas, and walked to a nearby bowling alley. He came across a teen named Ryan Clay who was fixing a car. He asked the teen for a ride, but Ryan told him, "This is not my car, I'm just fixing it." And John, I guess he just felt so powerful, he just committed several murders or what he thought. And he raised his gun up to Ryan and said, "Will you take me where I need to go?" And Ryan agreed. Before they left the parking lot, however, they were stopped by the car's owner, Michael Carr, who felt the situation was odd, and so he agreed to drive John to where he needed to go. During this time, Wendy and Gail were rushed to the hospital. Wendy passed away there, however, Gail survived. The next day, John found himself surrounded by authorities at a Plano shopping center. After what was considered a lengthy standoff, including John's threats to kill himself, he was apprehended without incident. For the death of his wife, John was charged and convicted of capital murder. Several eyewitnesses testified at his trial, including the teens he forced to give him a ride. The state of Texas does not play when it comes to sentencing and giving people the death penalty, and they sentenced John to death. And I guess that was appropriate because, I mean, he wanted to kill himself anyway, or so he claimed, so he got what he wanted. John's last day on Earth was May 25, 2010, and he requested the following for his last meal: 4 pieces of crispy fried chicken, 4 fried pork chops, 2 cheese enchiladas, 2 beef enchiladas, and 2 pork enchiladas, 1 bowl of pico de gallo, a bottle of ketchup, onion rings, salad, 6 slices of white toast, and 6 Cokes. And that is enough to feed all those that he terrorized on August 5th, 1991. He was escorted to a stretcher and given the chance to make a statement. His last words were, "I am sorry for taking someone so precious to you and to my kids. I wish I could go back and change it, but I know I can't. Thanks for being beside me. I appreciate you always standing by me and everything y'all have done. Tell everyone I love them. I'll be okay. You will too. Just tell everyone I love them. Okay, Warden, do it." His execution was witnessed by Wendy's family, BT's parents, and his own children. The fluid filled his veins, and John told the crowd he could taste it. With eyes closed, he stated, "I'm starting to go." He was pronounced deceased at 6:19 p.m. Wendy went through hell, and it's sad that she couldn't live her life and get away from her husband. How do y'all guys feel about the death penalty? As you know, several states have gotten rid of it. I was a big advocate on it until I realized several innocent people had been killed by the state, and I'm still for it, but that's if there's no benefit of the doubt that that person deserves it or killed someone. Like in this case, there were eyewitnesses who saw what John was doing. But if there is a chance that someone innocent can be put to death, I'm not sure how I feel. So y'all let me know. May Wendy rest in peace, and until next time, y'all stay safe out there.